Hi there, I'm Denise from Balance Me Coaching, and today I have the opportunity to interview Deborah Chalk. She's a life coach, and what she does is help people find their life purpose and live within that. She's also a content creator and copywriter for coaches. So welcome, Deborah.
Thank you so much for the welcome, Denise. I'm really glad to be with you today.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, we reckoned in our first discussion, we're quite far away because you're in Canada and here I am in Oxfordshire in England. So I've been coaching for the last 7 years. I originally started with Dr. Martha Beck and learned how to be one of her Wayfinder life coaches. So with Wayfinder life coaching, we're really helping people through changes that they're going through in their life, through transitions, perhaps figuring out if a job's not working out or life's not working out, what's next. And then just earlier this year, I took mind-body coach training with Abigail Morgan. And it's really, for me, taking things to another deeper level, helping people to connect their mind with their body, listen to their inner wisdom as well. It's been really amazing to work with.
Yeah, that's very important. It's because it's all one system, basically, right? Okay, so today we're going to so you're going to give us some ideas how to tackle our to-do lists.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially this time of year where those to-do lists are just getting longer and longer. And then, you know, with all the things that have been happening with the pandemic and perhaps things haven't been able to get done, and that's added to the length of the to-do list as well. So the first thing I'd say about this is that really the to-do list is not the thing on which your worth is based. You know, you do not get to be a valuable person the more things you have ticked off on your to-do list. So that's a really important thing just to start off with. I'd like to tell you about a tool which I learned from Martha Beck in my first coach training. And then perhaps from there we can just broaden things out beyond the getting the to-do list done, because I think there's more to it than just spending a life ticking things off a list. How does that sound?
That sounds great, because that's who I am too, because it gives you that successful feeling when you've got your to-do list and you can go, I've got this done. But no, life is a little more, you know, you're a little more worthy than that. So that sounds great.
Yeah, you're absolutely more worthy than that. You're so right. So the tool for those list tickers who love that and get a buzz out of it is called the 3 Bs, and it comes from the work of Martha Beck. So I'll talk you through the 3 Bs. The first B means bag it. Now, bag it is a bit like when you do your recycling, you do your Marie Kondo and you get rid of what you don't need in your house. You basically look through that to-do list and you get your big red pen out and you cross off whatever you do not actually need to do. And these might be things that you think you need to do, but when you reflect on it, actually, you don't need to do them. You can cross them off. It's not going to make all the difference in the world if you do that or not. Sometimes we just feel good for having an extremely long to-do list because it makes us feel, oh, maybe it's like that thing about people saying they're busy. You know, there's this thing about the pride in being busy because it means that you have important work. You can have an important work in the world without having a crazy long to-do list. So the first thing would be to bag it.
And you know what? Especially when I was in my 20s, the busier you were showed you how more successful you were. And how wrong is that? Like, that is just so wrong.
It's a really big cultural pattern.
It is.
And it's something that in the work that I do, I'm helping people to move away from, so that instead of being, you know, frenzied on the hamster wheel in the rat race, they can choose a different way. I know what that's like. You know, my first job after I graduated was in a merchant bank in London in the 1990s that had, you know, the kind of frosted glass and felt a bit Mad Men-ish of the kind of Mad Men of the 90s. And really, I was so glad to get out of there, and I'm so glad to find a different way of living now. So yeah, changing culture, absolutely. So the second thing would be to barter it. So this can be done in a variety of different ways. It might be that you, if you can, and not everybody's in this position, but it might be that you pay somebody to do a task for you. It might be that you swap the task with somebody else. So they might be really good at one thing and you're really good at another, and you just play to your strengths and say, okay, if I do this, will you help me with that? And this can often happen within a relationship with somebody that you live with, that you have things that you're playing to your strengths, and then everybody feels better. Everybody's doing the thing that they prefer. It can also be bartering with yourself. So it might be, you know, I have to do that thing, but if I do this thing, then I'm going to take time to relax afterwards. So it can be a form of bartering with yourself. And then the last B, Denise, is my favorite one really, is bettering it. So this is, you can't bag the task. You know you have to do it. You can't barter it, so you can't get somebody else to do it, unfortunately. So you're still stuck with it. So what you're going to do is you're going to better it. And there are so many ways that you can do this. I mentioned that you could reward yourself, which is always nice. You could also break it down into smaller steps. Martha Beck calls these turtle steps, because it's steps that even a slow turtle would be able to do. And so there's the breaking it down, there's the batching it. So you might do all of one thing at one time. So instead of checking your emails loads of times a day, you just have a time where you check in the morning, and then you check in again at lunch, and then you check in before you switch off your computer. And other forms of bettering it can be things like, you know, you've got a journey, you've got to do the journey, you've got to do the pickup or help somebody on that by doing a journey. Listen to a great audiobook on your journey, listen to music that you love. It can be simply things like wearing clothes that you enjoy wearing for something that you need to do. So it's really being very creative. Given that you have to do that task, always stop and say to yourself, okay, I've got to do this. How can I make this more fun? How can I enjoy it more? Can I do it with a friend? You know, people used to, in those days before COVID, used to have painting parties where they would paint the house together. Of course, that isn't as simple to do. But, you know, could you do some work with a friend online? So you check in with each other when you've written your blog posts and give yourself some accountability for it. Loads and loads of different ways that you can better a task. So that's really the 3Bs tool, which can be massively helpful. Just start off with your to-do list, go through them in order. So just to recap, can I bag it? Can I barter it? And can I better it? And then beneath the bettering, the two subcategories on that are batching things or breaking them down into smaller steps.
Yeah, I myself, I do a lot of batching, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I do, like, I mean, even if I'm doing something that, for instance, like I'm doing social media posts, you know, I'll play my favorite music in the background. So you've got that groove going, you know, and then once I'm done, I like giving myself a self-care reward, you know, whether I go for a walk or whether I go for a nice bath or, you know, something like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, the self-care is part of it. And for me, now I see that allowing that time to just chill and rest and play actually really powers forward your to-do list. Because sometimes you'll think, oh, I'll get more done if I force myself when I really don't feel like it. And so you'll be, I call it angry vacuuming, where you go around and it's like, the house has got to be cleaned. I'm going to angry vacuum, and you're going around crazily with your vacuum. And it doesn't bring any peace to the house. If you're into woo like me, it doesn't make the house feel that great, because that negative energy is kind of spread around the house as you go on your frenzied vacuuming. So instead, I'd just say, don't push yourself like that, where you don't have to. Cross the thing off your to-do list, do it another time, and just think, what can I do? From a law of attraction point of view, it would be called, what can I do to raise my vibration? So you do the playful thing first. So you might, if you play a musical instrument, you might, instead of starting with your hardest thing on your to-do list, I know that Brian Tracy, the coach, calls it eating the frog. He calls it eating the frog, starting with the hardest thing. So instead of starting with the eating the frog, start with the playful thing and feel really good, and then allow that really good energy to come back into your to-do list. And then look at your to-do list. You can do the 3 B's that we've talked about, or you can just say, what on this list feels really delightful? What on this list feels really fun? And then the other thing about that is, if there isn't anything that's really delightful or really fun on your to-do list, I'd really encourage anybody listening to start putting those things on there, because you have the power to really, really improve the quality of your life by giving yourself that gift.
Absolutely. And the thing is, too, is that when you do, like, I know for myself, when I need to be creative, whether I'm writing something or designing something, and you just don't have that feeling in you, and you are pushing yourself, like the angry vacuuming, the quality that you come out with is just not there either. I would rather, okay, I just don't feel it today. I'll put it on my list for tomorrow, and I'll do something else today. Having that flexibility is nice.
The flexibility is great. And again, that's countercultural, because the culture is telling you clock in at this time, you leave work at this time. And this comes from the Industrial Revolution, and when there were factories and when people were not knowledge workers in the way they are nowadays, where it was about how long you were spending at the machine. And now, because we are many more of us are information workers, it is about that, the energy that you're able to bring to it, the creativity that you're able to bring to it. And that comes from doing the work when you feel good, when you're replenished, when you're rested. So, it's maybe might be, it's not so unusual to link it now, but your to-do list is really linked to the amount of good sleep you're getting, because it's like whether you're doing things on a flat battery,
Yeah.
or whether overnight you've charged up your battery and you're raring to go. So things like getting good sleep, getting good nutrition, getting out in the open air, they're obvious things, but they're all going to help you to get the things that you want to get done in your life done.
Now, what do you think when you do your to-do list as it pleases you and as you feel it? For myself, I see my productivity go completely up, and I can get so much more done in less time, rather than pushing myself. Now, do you see our cultures changing to that way of working?
I think that it's very ingrained, the pushing, and the thing about, Abigail that I trained with, she actually calls it slacker magic. And slacker magic is the opposite. It's almost like by doing less that you can achieve more, by being more grounded, more inspired, that the things that you do have are just like fireworks. You just need to light the touch paper and the firework goes off, because there's that much greater energy behind it.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, is there any tips and tricks that you can offer them on top of the amazing information that you've shared already?
So the other thing I think is really so helpful is to actually start tuning into your inner guidance or your inner wisdom, because ideally your inner guidance will be helping you to come up with your to-do list, and that then just takes things to a whole different level. So a lot of the things that I do with clients are about helping them to actually listen to that inner wisdom. So a really simple way of doing that would be, first of all, to spend more time tuning in to your body. And a lot of people, they think I do meditation or I do yoga or something like that, and they'll think that they are really spending time in their body. But that isn't always necessarily the case, that just because you do these practices, it doesn't automatically bring you into your body. It might bring you into your body for a small amount of time, maybe while you're doing it, or maybe for a small amount of time within that, but you might be there on your yoga mat thinking all about all the things you've got to do and about all your to-do lists, so like completely disconnected from where you actually are. So just start off in your day, and it's so simple, but honestly it really is a great starting point. Just notice your feet and notice your breath. Like you can have feet all day and completely forget about the fact that you have feet. So just like bring yourself back into your body, notice your feet, notice you have breath. And if you want to get really fancy with it, you can even notice your feet and your breath and your hands all at the same time. And that just will bring you back into your body. And then whenever you've done that thing where you've been feeling good, then you might want to journal just about questions. You can ask yourself anything you want in your journal. So you can ask yourself, what do I need right now? What would be in my highest good, for my highest good right now? What doesn't need to get done? That's a great question. What doesn't need to get done? And
Yeah.
then just journal on it, see what comes up. And if you do this repeatedly, you'll start to get answers that zing, or answers that recur, or answers where you just start to wonder, well, I wonder what would happen if I did it that way, rather than doing it the way that I always have. So this then means that you're not just writing your to-do list from the head, you're writing the to-do list from your heart, from your inner wisdom. And it just comes from a really different place, and it's really exciting when that happens.
Yeah, I love the idea of the feet because that really sets the tone for grounding. It's it,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. So any other tips that you'd like to pass on?
I think that maybe part of it is about trusting yourself, that you know what you need to do, and that it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. That the to-do list doesn't all need to be on your shoulders, and it can be really hard for people who are always meeting other people's needs to think that they need to do everything. So just catch yourself about how you're talking about it, about how much of the responsibility that you're taking on your own shoulders. And even if there's even a small bit of it that you could share, because sometimes when we share responsibility, it gives others the opportunity to step up. It can give children, for example, an opportunity to be in a growth space, that they're also trusted to do that thing that you've always done for them, and if you don't do it for them, it's not going to work out. Just allowing yourself not to be the one who does everything.
I agree with that completely because I've done a lot of work in overextending yourself. And especially I find with women, we take on everything. But meanwhile, yes, get your children involved and get your partner involved or coworkers involved and use and not only that, it's fun to work as a team. Even I mean for myself, I loved divvying things up in smaller projects and giving those little projects away, and that way everybody has their input. I always put it into like a dinner rather than one person making the whole meal, doing the potluck where people can bring in other meals, different recipes, different flavors, and having that nice variety.
Yeah, it adds to the richness of it and it adds to everybody's experience. That's a really good analogy. So what I was saying really within that is stopping using self-pressure. And we sometimes think that if we pressure ourselves enough that will create change, but there's actually the opposite way of doing it. So dialing the pressure down, which brings the body into more of a state of regulation. You're feeling calmer, you're feeling more inspired, and then that then creates the change. So yeah, stopping self-pressure to create change. And then adding in some rest, adding in some doing nothing, even putting your sloth time on your calendar and putting your sloth time on your to-do list. So you might have 1 week of the month where you don't plan so much. So this is something I also learned from Abigail Morgan that I trained with, and she plans the last week of the month. She'll make a lighter week. And this is something that particularly now more people are on Zoom calls doing their work. You might have more flexibility with it than you've had in the past. So can you actually just consciously, even if you're using an online calendar, you can put a monthly recurring notice up there, plan my rest time, or, plan my sloth time, plan my slack time, however you want to call it. And you, at the end of each month, you will plan when that rest time is going to be in the upcoming month. And you'll also have a week of the month. It doesn't need to be the last week of the month, but you'll have a week of the month where, as much as you can, you'll plan it to be a lighter week. So you're not going to be doing the optician's visits that week or the extra things that get added on top of things. And I know that some people don't have the luxury of that. And even where you don't, I would just, if there's a tiny bit more rest or relaxation, if you make it that you're going to have 10 minutes on every day that week where you're going to watch something on Netflix that you love and you're just going to chill out with it, just whatever you can, at whatever level you can, plan in some rest, because that will really help you to get your to-do list done. And again, it's counterintuitive. You'd think, well, how can actually resting help me get more done? But it works that way.
Absolutely true. And people are starting to realize that,
They are.
it's a whole revolution. And I mean, if you are burning yourself out, when you are working or you are working on your to-do list, you start making mistakes, you start burning yourself out. So physically you're tired, and then you're not getting anything done in reality.
Yeah. And you can sometimes think you are. You sometimes think, this counts because I'm at the laptop screen, I'm in front of the computer.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as when the difference between a child that's rested doing their homework and a child that is all over the place doing their homework. The two are not the same thing. The learning is not going in when they're frazzled. So it's the same for you. The learning, the growth, the expansion, the creativity, it's just not happening. The fact that you're physically present at your computer screen does not mean that the work is happening. That you might be tuning out and not realizing it. You might be, I just managed to drift off and suddenly I'm looking at cat videos on Board Panda. How did that happen? It's really common, isn't it? And so many distractions. I think that's another thing about to-do lists, isn't it? About when distractions come up. And I think it's maybe, the allowing rest and play and allowing breaks is meaning that the time you are working, you're working in a focused way. You're working in a way that is, as you were talking about, more productive. And you know that at the end of that time where you have been working, there's a rest planned in, there's something delightful planned in. This can also be really, as we talked about before, very helpful if there's something you cannot bag. So there's something you've got to go to, you really don't want to go. Be planning in the rest that's going to come after it, be planning in the rejuvenation, the play that's going to come after it. And you're kind of making a deal with your inner self, with your inner wisdom, and you're saying, look, inner wisdom, I'm really sorry, we do have to do this thing. I know you'd rather not, but just stick with me for this. And then after it, will come the lovely time afterwards. So that can be really, really helpful and help you work in a more focused way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your wisdom on this. It's amazing. It's just a different, a different way of looking at things. And I find, like, even myself in the last couple of years, I've switched it over and I do get so much more done. And I feel so much more productive and rejuvenated. You're not straining yourself. I mean, in the past, I would have the horrible to-do list and I would feel, oh, I'm successful because I'm knocking things off. But I was really burning myself out in the end and stressing myself out.
And this is why, the content of the podcast is just so important for people, is that, you're encouraging people not to go into burnout. And I think if there's anything I'd like people just to take with them from the podcast is to approach your to-do list with a view of self-kindness. So this isn't about beating yourself up with the to-do list. It's not about making yourself a failure if you don't get all the things ticked off. The whole thing can be couched and driven forward and held by self-kindness.
Absolutely. Well, that's a nice note to end things on. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much, Denise.